Hey, what's up, guys? I got off before. Basically, wanted to redo it. Probably delete the other one. I'm not sure yet, but just kind of reiterate the whole story about the Raider, or sorry, the A's uh, not making their rent. That story is complete trash. It's lazy reporting, and it's irresponsible comments on the part of the JPA board members. The whole idea is that, or the story that's being reported is that the A's are using the COVID-19 pandemic as a way to get out of paying their rent, um, which is not true. Um, it has something to do with the reason why the rent is not being paid, but it is not the reason or the excuse that's being used. Um, Basically, what it comes down to is the by the JPA's own minutes from their meeting last Friday, the May 15th, they were courting offers basically from various agencies to use the arena and Coliseum and the parking facilities to help COVID 19 relief efforts, whether it's actual hospital overflow or using it as a testing site, or whatever it is. It's the idea is that if the public health comes first and all the baseball and concerts is second, as it should be. I mean, I agree with that part wholeheartedly. Um, what is not being put out there by most of the publications. Some have gone back and backtracked and added information, but most of them haven't, and most of them are running with the original Mercury, San Jose Mercury News a story. I saw it mostly as a post on Twitter. Uh, that everybody was reposting and retweeting, was that the whole thing was basically, sorry, was that the A's just didn't want to pay. And the real story is, again, by the JPA's own words, that they're trying to get out of it. And the head of the JPA, and I keep forgetting his name. It keeps Harper, I believe, is his last name. Uh, Said that the A's aren't playing games and they're not getting revenue, so that they don't have money to pay, and that's complete BS. The A's could pay that, no problem. The A's aren't broke, and as much as we like to play forward with that joke, that about them being cheapskates and stuff, that's just not the case. They could easily pay that. They're not going to pay it because it's part of the lease. If they can't use it, they're not going to pay that rent. And you wouldn't pay rent on an apartment that your landlord is, you know, holding up for other reasons, maybe showing it to other tenants. You wouldn't pay for that. Now, if you decided you couldn't use it, that's on you. But the A's, the county and the city and the state have all said no events. So if there's no events, the A's can't use it, whether they want to or not. And that's a big bone to pick. And, as part of their contract, they have to have the availability to use it. And if the city and then the state and the county are saying no, and they're also trying to maybe use it for other things, then why would you pay rent on it? And they haven't said they're not going to pay rent. They said, hey, when you guys figure it out, when we get all this stuff hammered out, we'll pay. They're not asking for a discount, or at least not yet. And if they did, if they only play half a season, I would expect some sort of a discount because they're not getting full use of it. But they're not asking for that yet. It sounds like guys like Ignacio de la Fuente, he was calling it bullshit or BS. He wants his money. Well, yeah, they're hurting for money. I get it. But to sit here and put out this bad PR One, you look bad. You look like a big mouth, and you look like you don't know what you're talking about, because clearly you don't. I don't know if you were sleeping at the meeting on Friday or if you didn't read any of the stuff, but that was irresponsible on your part, because uh, you ought to know better, because your own committee decided that they would uh, publish and document the fact that you guys don't expect to put on any events this year, possibly. That's why would anybody want to pay you for that? And then you have the bigger issue is you have people, especially not just the public. Anybody can say anything. Nobody reads anything but a headline. But you get other publications and other reporters and other journalists who take this and they run with it, and they don't bother to read. They don't bother to follow up. They don't ask questions. And, at least we had some follow through from people like Susan Slusser, who published the letter that the A's gave to the JPA, which said that basically, hey, we can't use it, and because we don't know what's going on and you don't know what's going on, we're going to hold off on our rent, and that's their legal I wouldn't say their legal obligation. It's their right. They don't have to pay it right now if they can't use it, and that's everybody just wants to look past that. Everyone wants to go, well, you have to pay. It says you have to pay. It's not it. A lot of people in this area you like to talk about how, hey, we can't pay rent. We can't pay rent, and all these greedy landlords. Well, the Oakland's acting like a bunch of greedy landlords, which they are. They need that $1.2 million. They need it. There's no concerts. There's no baseball. There's no football. There's no arena football. There's nothing. There's no circus. There's no Britney Spears. There's nothing happening right now. And it's not going to happen for the rest of the year. They're just sitting on lost money. So, of course, they're going to be, vocal about getting the money that they think they're owed, but they need to go back and read the contracts that they signed, because they don't actually owe it right now. Fulfill your end of the bargain, and they will fulfill theirs. That's basically what the A's are saying. But everybody piles on. Again, nobody reads, nobody asks questions, nobody follows through. They just hit the retweet, repost, share, and suddenly, this story is, it's a game of telephone. That's not what was said. And for them to make those statements, it goes to show, one, that they don't know what each other is doing. They don't know what their own committee is doing. They don't know what the city's doing. The city doesn't know what the county's doing. County doesn't know what the state's doing. Nobody knows what anybody's doing. And that's a failure on their part, because we elected them to know what's going on. And the other issue is in the media, and I hate to use the term fake news, but this is fake news. You know, it's fake news, not in the way that it was made up. It's not. Apparently these are quotes that these guys said, but the situation isn't being told to you truthfully, and it is fake news. It is utter bullshit that these people are out there spreading this fake news, and it kind of it illustrates the fact that the media in general, especially Bay Area media, likes to just crap on Oakland. Nothing Oakland does can go right. There's this general, I want to just call it, ignorant racist idea, especially from people from like the Peninsula, San Francisco, and South Bay, who are just like, "Ooh, don't go to Oakland. Oakland's bad. Oakland's full of murderers and drug dealers and hookers and homeless people, and it's just crime." And I'm like, "You've never been to Oakland, have you?" And I run into those people all the time, and a lot of them, no, they have never been to Oakland. They just heard what other people told them, and that's one. It's that general psyche that general attitude of looking down on Oakland and the East Bay in general, but also just the propensity for the news to just be everything negative. They don't want to report how the East Bay is the economic engine that runs the Bay Area. Besides Silicon Valley, we do our own part. It's our port that's taking in all this. This is where all the people are living, and they go and they commute to San Francisco and they commute to the South Bay to take those tech jobs. But this is where people live. It's different over here, and to not understand that is ignorant and irresponsible. When you pass these stupid rumors, you're no better than Klansman wearing his little cap and Nazis with their swastikas. You're no better than that. Understand what you're reporting. I understand Twitter's full of trolls and everybody has an opinion. But most of you guys are fucking idiots. And then you want to pass yourself off as knowing something, and you're lazy, just like the reporters, and you're lazy, just like the news agencies, and you're lazy, just like the politicians. Garbage in, garbage out. Know what you're talking about before you go and you spread all this stuff around. This goes both ways. This goes in every direction. Don't be so quick to crap on other places just because you don't understand or that's not where you're from. Oakland has gotten a bad shake over the last few decades, especially because nobody respects what's going on here. And, but for some reason, you guys are all moving over here. All the people from San Francisco and South Bay and stuff, you can't hack it in those places. You come to the South or to the East Bay and you want to live here and you want to crap on it at the same time. You don't shit where you eat. Yes, the A's are notorious cheapskates, absolutely, but they're not the asshole in this. The city and the JPA. You take your pick of which person, but in this case, Harper and De La Fuente, they're the ones who are running their mouths without even knowing what they're talking about. Again, and the media is going to run with it. There's a lot of anti-Oakland sentiment in the media. Very few companies or media companies, whether it's Bay Area News Group or KPIX or anything. The only station that ever seems to say anything nice about Oakland is Channel 2, KTVU, because they're based in Oakland. But even they have a hard time saying anything nice about Oakland. They're Fox News affiliate. So they have a hard time. I just saw the comment. I don't think everybody wants to run with anything negative that has to be said about Oakland, and take it to a whole other direction. The Portland, Las Vegas stuff, I don't see it happen. Everybody, at least not right now. The way it's going, the A's have put in over a year of politics, trying to get the stadium going. It's close. It's so close. It's just a waiting game. They got the EIR through, and then now they're running through a lawsuit because apparently the governor signed off on the EIR, fast-tracking it, but apparently, what the lawsuit says is that his ability to do so expired before he did it. Whether it has or not, who knows? And then this is slowing down court processes, and the county, they can't have their meetings. They're finally moving that forward. They're doing like Zoom meetings and stuff. That slows it down. But at the end, there's still a lot of planning and stuff that still has to go on. I don't see this. I don't see this being a big deal. I don't think Las Vegas at this point would. I don't think anybody's really looking at that. Here you got a whole place that's going to be devastated if the effects of the shutdown are long term, which they expect them to be. We're already moving into a recession as it was. But if this moves that direction and it takes a long time to recover, Las Vegas is the worst place you can go for sports or really anything right now. It's going to take a while to get back. Portland Portland couldn't even support minor league baseball. They barely support basketball. Um, I I don't see that as a thing. Um, Long term, uh, yeah, I think Portland's. I don't think Portland's up there yet. I don't think Portland's a real discussion. Not this far into the game. Again, the A's have put in a lot of miles and money to get where they are right now with the stadium, um, and they can pretty much have whatever they want here. The city's willing to pretty much give them what they need, besides money. You know, it just goes to show that if you commit to Oakland, then the amount of support you're going to get, not just from the fans but from the political community to make that happen. You know, this Libby Schaff needs to make it happen, because this this is it. If for some reason this falls off between now and her and the next election, she's done. She is done for. She lost the Raiders basically, and uh, lost the Warriors under her watch. It The term privately financed is weird. Um, it's kind of a technicality. Yes, it would be privately financed, but the local infrastructure around it would be paid for by bonds and such. Izeni would be a much better person to ask about those things. There are special. It's escaping me right now. There are special measures and stuff that they can take to get public loans and financing for the infrastructure. There has been some talk of public put in. I don't know which one. Certificate of publicly financed stadium in California. Um, it's not going to be the stadium will be paid for by the A's. How it's going to get paid for is the question. The entire thing with buying the Coliseum property and that whole thing is it muddies the water. But let's say that the detractors about that are right. Let's say the A's are buying that land at a big discount, and then they turn around and sell it for a profit. Well, technically, that's still publicly financed, even though they got a deal, or sorry, privately financed. They're going to use the money that they profited in the sale and the development of the land to pay for the stadium. So technically, it is, but people see that discount as the subsidy. Um, it's really hard to say what's going to happen. Um, Supposedly, it happens whether they get that land or not. So, you know, it's a lot of politics. I'm learning as I go that not just stadiums and sports in particular, or in general, but in economics and getting anything done, any sort of public works project, takes a lot of BSing and butt kissing and palm greasing, and you're going to have to start contributing to elections and uh, hobnobbing with people you probably wouldn't associate with normally. Um, you've got to make everybody happy, and that's what makes politics politics. And sometimes it's not the prettiest thing. Sometimes you're going to have to piss off some voters, and sometimes you're going to have to piss off some big companies, and somebody's going to get mad, and everybody's going to do what they got to do, to get their way. But eventually, it all comes down to compromise. And compromise doesn't always mean that you give in to something. It's just that you don't give up everything either. You're just meeting somebody halfway, but it doesn't mean that you're exposed in any sort of way. But with this, we got an election coming up. If Libby can't make this happen, this is her baby. This is she was she the president of the port of Oakland or something like this. This whole thing has always been her baby, to make something happen there. And if she fails, sometime between now and November, then well, she fails. She'll probably lose her office. Then again, I don't really know who's going to be a strong opponent for her in that matter. Um, we'll see. I mean, there's still a lot of months, but uh, politics has taken a back seat to this pandemic. We're not talking about primaries anymore. We don't even know how we're going to do an election come November. California will be vote by mail. But what is this? 49ers, Rams, Chargers, Warriors, Clippers, all. California's not giving its money away to BS, and I totally agree with that, and I totally support Libby Schaaf's stance on not giving public money to the Raiders or the Warriors. They're I'm a little bit socialist about this, I kind of look at it like, how dare you take or take public money, taxpayer money that we could be using for police and schools and libraries and fire departments. How dare we take that money and build stuff for billionaires and multimillionaires, and then they give us no piece of the pie. It's like, if you're gonna, I think that like the Green Bay Packers is sort of the model that it should be for these teams. Like, you don't get to use the word Oakland or San Francisco or Los Angeles or New York without giving the locality some sort of something, money, ownership, whatever it is. But if you're going to pay if you're going to have us come up, for instance, let's say we're Las Vegas, you're going to have Las Vegas come up with $750 million. You've got to give whatever that equal amount of what you're kicking in of the team to the city. So in this case, let's say it's half. Let's say 750 is half of the cost of the stadium. The taxpayers of Las Vegas should own half of the Raiders. And then once that money is recouped, then the cities can wash its hands of that. But they should be getting a piece of the pie if you're going to ask them to pay for it. That's the way I look at it. But you can't sit there and claim. Yeah. Right now they're hurting big time in Las Vegas. Vegas is going to be one of those places that are they're going to be hit hard again. They already have been hit hard. Most of the places out of bit. When their biggest, what do you want to call it? Their economy is based on gambling and entertainment, and we've just shown that without it, that they're destitute. It's great. There's a lot of Walmarts and Targets and grocery stores and whatnot. Las Vegas is strip mall after strip mall, but at the end of the day, you can't support those strip malls unless you have people that are working. They don't have much big industry there. The construction game right now is building casinos and stadiums, and even that was at risk. They put people's lives at risk to do so, but the end game is, those people don't get anything at the end of the day. And then they still have, they don't even get a discount on tickets. You don't get anything. It's like, you don't get a free Pepsi when you walk in the door. You don't get anything for being a taxpayer out of that, unless you pay even more money on top with PSLs and season tickets. And there's nothing in it. But if you're just Joe Schmo from the casino, you're some executive guy. Hey, you'll get some free tickets, and you'll get a you'll get comped a suite, and you can bring 20 of your best friends and colleagues and come check out a game. It's a mess. But as far as it comes to Oakland, again, going back to the story, is, you know, it was irresponsible of the board members to go on record and say the things they did without realizing that they, one, uh, they contradict their own statements through the JPA meeting minutes, and then not knowing the ins and outs of the contract, and without, I feel like maybe they got cornered in this, and got blindsided by a reporter's question, because that really what it comes down to. If I said, "Hey, did you know that the A's didn't pay?" and they'd be like, "What? Oh, that's bullshit. They should pay. We ought to get them." And I feel like that's the way it kind of happened. I don't think somebody approached them and gave them the time to come up with a proper response. And then you get this, and everybody runs with it. But again, it's again that whole anti-Oakland sentiment that's in the news media. Everybody wants Oakland to fail. And unfortunately, Oakland politics doesn't really support changing that idea. So it's kind of a mess. Oakland politics is broken, or are broken. They should do something, more of a team effort, instead of everybody's just really jockeying for the next spot. Who's going to be the next city councilman, or who's going to be the next mayor? And then because you have your political aspirations. Some guys are fine just being a councilman. Some guys just want to hang out and collect that paycheck. And some people actually want to do good and change the way things are going. We need more of those people, though. We need more of those people who have those ideas that the status quo isn't enough for Oakland anymore. We've got to, yes, we have to, take care of the people who already live here. We have to take care of the poor people. We have to take care of that majority, that's typically been Oakland. Oakland has always been a proud black city. Is up there with Washington, D.C. and Baltimore, and nameless others. It's like, or Atlanta. I remember we had a lot of family from Atlanta. Oakland's one of those cities, and once I'm all for protecting that part of their image and their history, but at the same time, we still need to grow the city. We need to provide the things, the necessities that they need, whether it's public safety issues, or just potholes in the streets. And giving that money away is trash. And we can't afford to do that anymore. We've done it already, and we've been burned by the Warriors and the Raiders. But at the same time, we can't be so angry about all that you burn those bridges. You need the A's. Really, you do. It's as much as it's civic pride. Building that stadium at Howard Terminal is paramount right now. There are a lot of businesses are already moving into that area, just hoping that in the long run that this all works out, and that there's a stadium there in 3 years, and that their club or their bar or their restaurant is going to be I won't say vital, but it's going to serve those fans, and that their entire business model is based on that stadium being there, and their long-term survival is based on having that. And when I look at that and I go, well, that's just one piece. How about when they do redevelop parts of the Coliseum, and what about why haven't we done something crazy with the whole Hagenberger corridor. I mean, you're right there next down to an airport. Does blue collar image in Oakland? Hell yeah, we're still blue collar in Oakland. It's not what it used to be. Oakland. The port of Oakland is still very much that blue collar thing. I don't know about the construction jobs anymore. But by all means, yeah, they are, because a lot of I wouldn't say Oakland, maybe outside of Oakland. A lot of the dudes I know who are working real blue collar jobs, they're living here in Richmond or San Leandro, Hayward. They're living kind of on the outskirts. I know a lot of folks, even further East Bay, like Antioch, Pittsburgh, and then like Discovery Bay, and that sort of stuff. Just because it's more affordable. Oakland is turning. Gentrification's real. It's turning into a lot of younger, upwardly mobile people. People in the tech industry, and Oakland's going through its own little tech boom right now. But it's also the other big boom in Oakland is marijuana. It's funny is I was driving around and I had somebody in my car and they're like, wasn't like the old Mother's Cookie factory around here? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, yeah, I remember you used to be able to like smell the cookies. I'm like, you still can sometimes, but now it smells like weed. Yeah, if you're all over that area, it just smells like weed because everybody's got grow houses going in all the old warehouses and stuff. But the economy changes, and then not only that is it does still have that blue collar thing, but all the steel foundries and shipyards and stuff, that's all gone. That's long gone. That was, that stuff was petering out in the 60s and 70s. And now basically everything is shifting from San Francisco and the peninsula over here because all that real estate on the west side basically is being renovated, and it's turning into condos and office spaces and that sort of thing, and pushing out the artists and the smaller businesses that can't afford those sky high rents, and so they're taking over the spaces in the East Bay. You're even with the current situation, you're starting to see that businesses are realizing that they don't need to have people on site all the time, and you're going to see probably another change in how businesses do business. How you go to work. Your Twitter was talking about. I was like, we don't actually need people to come in. You could just work from home. I know so many people who are working from home now. I'm like, oh, are you out of work? They're like, no, I telecommute now. You mean you could have been telecommuting for the last 10 years? But they're not, So if you don't need people to fill up an office building, well, then maybe now you don't need 2 million square feet. Now maybe you only need 5,000 square feet. And that's going to drive the cost of property down if that's the way it ends up going, because then they'll have a glut of unused office space. But then again, that could be the mark for another boom, because now you've taken away a roadblock to entrepreneurship. And that the biggest thing, even for me, running my own business, is that finding a place to work out of is incredibly difficult and incredibly expensive. Even in places that were bad neighborhoods, North Richmond, parts of like West Oakland and East Oakland, those warehouses and commercial properties, they're ridiculous now because these are the places that are growing. These are the places where small businesses and startups are going, and they need to keep that overhead down. And when you're at tens of thousands of dollars per square foot in San Francisco, that's a luxury that these little businesses can't afford. VC money isn't going towards paying rent; it's going towards innovation and research. But the whole point, I was before I went off on this tangent was, it's bad, it's bad politics, and it's really lazy media. And this has always been my criticism of the media, which has been that they are they write sensationalist articles. People don't read them. They just run with them. And they've always had like this negative slant towards Oakland, and even with the Coliseum project, or the new stadium project, the ILWU have been very vocal in the news, and nobody talks to the other people on the other side. They want to go to the loudmouth on with the bullhorn, screaming at people but they're from San Francisco. Um, they don't really speak for the people who work in Oakland. And the funny part was, when there was a big meeting at Port of Oakland, and I was there covering it. And the video's on here. If you go through Zenny62, it's in there somewhere. But there was a meeting and at the Port of Oakland, and all these guys were like, "Well, the unions don't agree." But then I started talking to people. I'm like, "Hold on, what unions?" And they're talking about, "Oh, just it's the dock workers." I'm like, "What about the Teamsters?" Because the Teamsters are really the ones who are running out of Howard Terminal. Those are the truck drivers and the forklift operators. And I found some of those guys, and they're like, no, we're here to support it. We support that. The Teamsters are one of the biggest unions in the country, if not the biggest. I don't know who's bigger than the Teamsters, but they're huge, and they have a lot of power. And the service worker unions and all these other unions, they were like, no, we want this project because they're jobs. They're jobs for us. And this isn't even a piece that's being used, So there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff, and none of these guys even knew what they were talking about. They came here because their union guys said, hey, go down there and protest. We'll pay you an extra few bucks. And that's just kind of the way it is. We hear about it in political campaigns. We heard it with Trump support or Trump rallies in the last election, where they'd be just bussing people in. They'd pay the people filling the seats were paid to be there. We even saw that with Hillary Clinton campaigners who are being